All right, everyone. It is 9:01 Mountain Time, which means it's 12:01 or just a little after noon on the East Coast. I am Candace Fraser, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at TTI Success Insights. I'm really excited to be delivering this webinar to you today on how diversity can help your business to grow exponentially by expanding your definition of diversity. During today's webinar, I do want to cover just a few housekeeping items to get out of the way before we get started. First, there are a good amount of people that are registered for this webinar today, so all attendees will be kept on mute. If at any point you have a question, please feel free to go into the GoToWebinar control panel and open up the questions pane, and you could type in a question there. I will do my very best to answer questions as they come through, or I could take those questions at the end of the entire presentation. That's completely up to you. We will be recording this webinar, and we will be sending it out after the webinar has completed, so rest assured you'll be getting that recording and can revisit it to be able to implement some of the great learnings and insights into your business after the webinar. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into it. And let's discuss how diversity can help your business to grow. Diversity is a well-known and relatively controversial topic today. Today I'm going to show you how to broaden and deepen your understanding of diversity so that your business can continue to grow. But diversity in some cases can get a bad rep. So let me show you where my interest peaked for this topic. Denise Young-Smith was an intelligent, or still is an intelligent, but she was a 20-year Apple veteran and made a comment that she later made a statement that she had regretted and wished she could take back. Essentially, TechCrunch broke this, broke this story and provided a few comments that was picked up by, in particular, Business Insider. And the most compelling and controversial of which was the second comment, or the second editorial factor here. It drew attention from a tremendous amount of people in a community, resulting in an uproar, and understandably so. As you can see here, she drew criticism last month when she said that a room of, quote, 12 white, blue-eyed, blonde men, end quote, could be diverse. This comment is exceptionally surprising. It seems rather short-sighted, slightly confusing. And is her comment wrong? In my opinion, yes. I think it's way too narrow of a definition. The big question that I had after I read this was, how is it even possible that an intelligent veteran of a worldwide business, of an industry that people are very familiar with, how could someone that represents diversity and inclusion make a statement that can polarize so many people? What Smith failed to do is to acknowledge the fact that traditional diversity plays a critical role in addition to the concept of diversity of thought, and to basically use that concept of traditional diversity to enhance and to broaden and to deepen our understanding of it. Smith's fatal flaw is that she swapped out one aspect of diversity for another. And today, I think it's important for us to go a lot deeper in our discussions to be able to understand how we cannot fall into the pitfall that Denise Young-Smith did, by primarily recognizing that diversity is not simple, and quite frankly, oversimplification is dangerous. I want to teach you how to broaden your understanding by finding areas where you can basically build complements, not contradictions, to statements that help you to expand what you know about diversity and how that can help all of the efforts that you have underway in your organization. So here's our agenda for today. First, we're going to take a look at the world in the United States. Then we're going to explore what diversity can mean and look at multiple definitions. Then we're going to examine some social proof, some proof points on how diversity does work, and show those measurable improvements for organizations that are able to leverage diversity in compelling ways. And then give specific steps both to you as an individual and then to your organizations as a whole. So first, let's talk about where we are in the world today. And we're going to take a look at some statistics. As of 2017, the world population has hit 7.6 billion people, and that's according to a source worldometers.info. If you do work in a particular continent, you may be zeroing in on it right now. But essentially what you could see here is that Asia has a population of 59.5% of the world population, Africa of 16.9%, Europe of 9.7%, Latin America and the Caribbean 8.5%, North America at 4.8%, and Oceania at 0.5%. Now, if you remember that North America is only 4.8% of the population, which includes Canada and Mexico, let's take a look at some United States statistics. The total people employed in 2016 were 126, almost 127 million. So keep in mind that that makes up only that small percentage of the total 4.8 of North America. But for organizations today, relying on things like ethnic or cultural origin is a great starting place, but it's insufficient if you want to get ahead of the rest of the industry. Again, it's that foundational element that we can build upon. So in the US, you could see that 61.7% of the total employed population is Caucasian, 17.8% Hispanic and Latino, Black or African American at 13.3%, Asian at 5.7%, American Indian or Alaska Native at 1.3%, and Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander at 0.2%. I did attempt to look at how these ethnographic or ethnicity statistics break down across the world. The funny thing with those statistics is that they actually break down by specific region or they break down by specific country. It was difficult to be able to aggregate that on that higher level. So that's why we're focusing on the US here. But if you were in a different country as well, you can narrow down and drill down into the stats that are associated with your respective region. Age diversity is another factor to consider here. So when we take a look at the CIA World Factbook, and this is from 2006, we see that people in the 0 to 14 age range made up 26.3% of the population, 15 to 64 at 65.9%, 65 plus at 7.9%, and the median age there being 28.4 years. So this fact is a little bit older, but I think still relevant, even if you add the 12 or so years to it. But here is one stat that is absolutely true, and that's that some of those sources are saying that today's working ages make up over 2/3 of the world's population. So again, I want to restate that 2/3 of the world's population are of working age right now. So when we look at these statistics, these reflect traditional diversity, and that of almost these protected classes. So it could be gender diversity, racial diversity, age diversity, and I'm sure that there are a host of other categories as well. These reflect what we call inherent diversity, those elements and qualities of an individual that are either assigned or that they are born with. And these three areas are critical. From an employment law standpoint, there is definitely a focus on ensuring that diverse individuals are treated fairly in organizations. But to truly leverage the power of diversity, we need to build on these inherent elements to look at additional ways to understand what it means to be diverse within an organization. So before we go into what those additional elements are, let's consider the benefits of diversity and what specifically diversity can mean overall. So here's what diversity can do. First of all, diversity can absolutely enhance the way a team performs. By helping individuals on a team find alternative ways to be able to solve their problems, we can actually be leveraging unique experiences when unique people come together and share their unique perspectives. Diversity can also disrupt team performance, and it may actually slow down some processes, but while it's simultaneously increasing the quality of output. Curiosity and a desire to explore and understand one another and consider diverse viewpoints can actually slow down the process, can reduce the speed of execution, but again, it results in that higher quality. This can result in stress and conflict within team members, but I don't want you to think about that in only a negative way. Stress and conflict can actually be productive. It can lead to more innovative outputs. And even we see Kelly McGonigal, who gave a TED Talk recently, and she was an ATD speaker in 2017, where she talks about stress being your friend and how you can leverage that to perform at higher levels. So again, stress and conflict are the areas where we actually innovate and grow, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in our presentation today. Diversity can also change assumptions and expectations in highly collaborative and highly productive ways. This allows for team members to challenge an idea or challenge an assumption and expectation and think about the way that they approach those challenges differently in order to have that higher quality output. So now that we've identified some things that diversity can do within an organization when diverse individuals come together to solve challenges, let's understand how we can broaden and deepen our understanding of diversity to help your organization perform. And in particular, we can talk about acquired diversity, which is a second dimension of diversity overall. It's very different from inherent diversity. And essentially, we can look at it in a few different ways. The first, take a look at ethnographic diversity, which is exploring different cultural backgrounds. So again, this is not something that is necessarily assigned to you or it's something that you're born with, but you can, for example, be born and raised in the UK and then move to Hong Kong for a while and have a really good understanding of the cultural background and essentially make that a part of your being. So thinking about all of the different cultures in a respective region or in a respective country and how that might influence working style, relationships, even holidays that are celebrated, or other things that are important to people that would alter their perspective and help them to solve challenges in new and creative ways. Let's look at the second element of acquired diversity, or the second dimension, and that's experiential diversity, looking at prior work experience. So this lends itself to different backgrounds as well, but how can we leverage different skill sets from various careers and job types to apply to a new field? If you know of anybody that has ever served in the military and they take some of the military learnings that they have and apply that in the nonprofit or for-profit world, that would be an example of experiential diversity, where they could take those prior work experiences and carry them forward. You can also have somebody that's in a biotechnic field move into a business field. And again, that experiential diversity comes into play for the people that are in your organization. And then we could look at educational diversity, and that would be educational backgrounds. So it could be universities from different places. It also could be levels of education, people that did graduate from high school, or maybe they didn't. People that got their undergrad or have different specialties. Maybe they went to a trade school, or maybe they went to less traditional schools or non-traditional schools. How does that educational background provide a unique viewpoint for your organization to solve the challenges that you may have? Something to think about. And lastly, there's the concept of ideological diversity, most recently made popular by Mark Zuckerberg, but it's recognizing viewpoints and belief systems that might shape our biases and our constructs. But these can also serve as alternative sources of inspiration. So this does go down to some of the things that we're hearing in the zeitgeist right now around politics or around religion. Again, as a best practice, typically not brought up in the workplace, but it still is part of that background and that unique viewpoint that could provide another perspective to help us solve challenges in new and highly creative ways. The fact of the matter is, when you have somebody that is, or you have a team of people that all agree on the same viewpoint, or agree on the same ideological stance or ethnographic experiences, then you may be missing something. You may not be solving the challenges in your organization in the most creative way possible. So when you lean into two-dimensional diversity, or the second dimension, you may have diversity of thought. And doing so is going to enable you to innovate and be very creative by relying on the unique experiences and the strong relationships built between people. But this doesn't come without its challenges. There are some really critical skills that are going to be in play when you're bringing very unique people to the table. And that includes communicating effectively through robust and respectful dialogue. It also requires that individuals suspend judgment while they listen and approach everything with that degree of curiosity, looking to explore and to learn more and to understand. It also requires that individuals build robust and build strong relationships with people from very different backgrounds than they would have themselves. And it also requires that individuals keep an open mind to what is unfamiliar and maybe what you're uncomfortable with overall. So let's take a moment to explain the fixed versus growth mindset. And if you were to think of a golden arrow in your quiver of building a diverse team, it's the fixed versus growth mindset. You see, because fixed mindsets believe that talents and gifts are given to you, they're innate and they're fixed. There's no room for growth. Whereas the growth mindset believes that talents can be developed over time. And honestly, the data that we have seen has shown that those with growth mindset tend to achieve more than those who have a fixed mindset. So as you are bringing people to your organization, as you are trying to solve a challenge in your business, it's important to keep in mind that no matter how diverse the talent, they must have that growth mindset. If anyone does have that fixed mindset, you're diversifying for naught. So in order to have that truly diverse organization, all team members must believe in growth and they must believe in change. But don't take it from me. Take it from some experts in the field. Take it from Frans Johansson. He's the author of the Medici Effect, which talks about the concept of diversity and innovation happening at the intersection of ideas in his book, The Medici Effect. And what he specifically says is that innovation happens at the intersection of ideas, concepts, and cultures. And people are the ambassadors that bring that forward for an organization to create those innovations. His book even talks about taking those concepts from one field and introducing it to another field to create innovation. I'll give you a few examples. One of the most popular and just really thorough examples that he has is how architects can actually look at termite hills in Africa to build some really sustainable buildings in the world based on basically termites opening different air vents within their termite hill, so to say, to keep the inside of their colony at a very stable, I believe it's either 79 or 82 degrees. So interesting to kind of think about how an architect can build a building to make it like a termite hill. Or another example that he gives is how ant colonies communicate and how does that have an impact on telecommunications. And honestly, a lot of the telecommunications framework is built on the concept of routing in the most exponential way or expeditious way, and honestly built on the concept of ant colonies. Excuse me. There is also some culinary artists that are in New York City who make cultures intersect in their restaurants, resulting in high-performing organizations, really well-known restaurants that get the utmost Zagat ratings in New York. So they're taking things like Swedish culture combined with Japanese culture and blending the two for a new kind of fusion. So having a group of people with similar backgrounds from similar places would never enable these types of innovations to occur. And Frans Johansson is absolutely an advocate for those innovations happening within organizations. Another observation that we made about openness and listening to other people came from Anthony Lissing Antonio. And essentially he said here, when we hear dissent from someone who is different from us, it provokes more thought than when it comes from someone who looks like us. So throughout our research, we see this concept of unconscious biases consistently coming up. And it is fascinating to me in particular that when someone who looks like you, acts like you, has the same background, provides a disagreeing viewpoint, we're more likely to dismiss it. But when we hear a disagreeing viewpoint from someone who is very different from us, we may consider how that can potentially be true. So diversity works, and I'm going to show you some examples, not only from the thought leaders that we just examined, but from some studies that will show you how you can move forward effectively. So brace yourselves because here comes the stats. So a McKinsey study found that those teams that tend to be gender diverse are 15% more productive. The same McKinsey study found that those ethnically diverse teams are 35% more productive than teams that are not ethnically diverse. And get this, for every 10% increase in ethnic diversity on the senior teams of organizations resulted in a 0.8% increase in earnings. Holy cow. So we can actually see that diversity as a whole helps teams to not only become more productive, but gets directly to the bottom line. So this reflects traditional understandings of diversity as well, as you can see through gender and ethnicity. When we consider this concept of two-dimensional diversity, again, looking at what's inherent traits you're born with, plus those that you've acquired, traits that you've gained from experiences, we've actually seen a study from Talent Innovation, or the Center for Talent Innovation, that shows that companies with two-dimensional diversity out-innovate and outperform those that do not have so. And in fact, 45% of those companies grew their market share over the previous year, and 70% captured a new market. So think about your business and how important it might be to grow an existing market or expand into a new market that you are looking to gain additional profitability from and be able to serve those customers effectively. It's critical to have this aspect of two-dimensional diversity in today's business, in today's market, where those changes are happening at a very rapid rate like we've never seen before. But this is not new. A lot of the businesses that we've seen and that we aspire to have done so. Let me show you a few of the world's most innovative companies that have relied on this concept of creative disagreement to foster growth within their businesses. I'm going to examine just two here today, although if we had about 4 or 5 hours, I'm sure I could go through a lot more examples. These were the most compelling. So Alfred Sloan, the former CEO of GM, was facilitating a meeting, and this actually was a quote that came up in the book, and he said, "Gentlemen, I take it that we are all in complete agreement on the decision here." Everyone nodded. So he continued, "Then I propose we postpone further the discussion of this matter until the next meeting to give ourselves time to develop this agreement and perhaps gain some understanding of what the decision is all about." What he's saying here is that we need to find ways to disagree to bring unique perspectives and viewpoints in order to effectively move a business forward and make decisions in a way that considers multiple viewpoints. We need to think about various different perspectives and bring those to our businesses in order to move forward. Here's another example, and someone that I personally have a professional crush on, and who doesn't, right? It's Jeff Bezos. He's the founder and CEO of Amazon.com, and he actually goes as far as to say that he dislikes social cohesion and prefers open disagreement in his meetings. And in fact, Amazon holds this principle, this concept of open disagreement and diverse perspectives so well that they actually put the principle on their website by stating they have a backbone. Disagree and commit, which is one of my favorite phrases that has ever come out of the Amazon camp overall, where leaders are obligated to respectfully challenge those decisions when they disagree, even when doing so is uncomfortable or exhausting. The last thing businesses need today is another yes man or yes woman. What we need, and it's our role and our obligation, to be able to disagree and provide our viewpoints in a way that moves the business forward. So the big question is, how do you get there? So what can individuals do? What can you do to embrace these concepts of two-dimensional diversity to move your business forward? And Jeff Bezos and Alfred Sloan are two winners when it comes to this concept of two-dimensional diversity. So let's understand how you can also win. And then we're going to examine how you can potentially carry that forward to your organization as well. So first, as an individual, something that you can do is committing to boosting your own cultural competency within your organization. Make a point to educate yourself by learning about your organization's history, learning about the backgrounds of the employees that are within your organization, or perhaps even more importantly, is to understand the unique backgrounds and cultural perspectives of your consumers and your customers so that you can better relate to them, better understand them, and be able to serve them in much more compelling ways. Develop a growth mindset for yourself. Practice and exercise your ability to grow and to acquire additional learning because, again, diversity without a growth mindset is for naught. Also, actively seek out new perspectives. Seek out those new ideas that might help you consider how you can bring new and innovative ideas and practices into your organization. And lastly here is to seek out and understand your own unconscious biases. Let's go into that a little bit more because you really need to be aware and beware of your unconscious mindset. The first step is to acknowledge that everyone has an unconscious mindset and that we need to actively work on those things to overcome them. Keep in mind that it's completely natural for our brains to be able to build things into categories. That's how it helps us to be more efficient. And you know, a great concept that I've heard is basically even when you're going to the grocery store to be able to organize things. All the bread is together, right? All of the canned goods are together, and that categorization helps us to move more quickly through a grocery store. So the same thing happens in our brain, and our brain is actually designed in a way that enables us to see that and to have that come forward. But be aware of the comfort principle, which essentially says that people are more comfortable working with people who are similar to them. Seek out ways to become uncomfortable and maybe make even uncomfort or discomfort part of your own core values so that you can consistently learn and consider those unique perspectives. Also, consider unconscious images. And essentially what this is where we fall into habits of thinking of what we've seen in the past is always what we're going to be seeing going forward. So, for example, if you are a fan of Mad Men, like I am, you may look at that and think all agencies are built like that. And that is not necessarily true. Some definitely are built like that, but not all of them. So to be able to say that all agencies are built in the same way that Mad Men is, that's actually pulling forward our unconscious images and making assumptions. Unconscious images really helps us to, again, be able to categorize things and to work more quickly. But when it comes to innovating and getting new ideas in our organization, we need to overcome those. And if we do not make ourselves aware of some of those comfort principle elements and some of those unconscious images, then we're not going to be able to move forward effectively and it'll become a larger issue. Again, the Scientific American and Psychology Today has shown us that we need to be able to basically distill this information and be aware that whenever we convert new information into discrete categories, we are losing something. So bringing diverse individuals to the team will help us to overcome those unconscious mindsets. When we create awareness around this as well, we have a better opportunity to essentially gain information back that we may lose in the categorization itself. Here's the next step for you as an individual, either working with your colleagues or clients or employees, direct reports, or even supervisors, right, is to, regardless of their cultural backgrounds, to find common ground. Seek out those who are different from you. Be authentic and sincere the entire time, but find those common ground elements by asking those open-ended questions and seeking those things that you share in common with another individual to be able to build that relationship so that you can more effectively solve problems together. Also, deepen your appreciation of differences of other people. Have that open mind, embrace that growth mindset, and appreciate the differences by learning and listening actively. And lastly, vocally promote an inclusive and welcoming work environment where you can interact, you can engage, and you can even promote the people who are different from you. And I'm not talking about necessarily giving them a new title or giving them a raise when it comes to promotion, but to actively talk about what you've learned and how that other person has allowed you to expand your perspective. And in doing so, you're essentially creating what I call the shadow of a leader. You're emulating the behavior that you want other individuals in your organization to embrace as well. So now that we've considered you as an individual and what you can do to flex your own growth mindset and help diversity to grow within your organization, let's examine what you can do to help your larger organization as a whole move forward effectively. And what it comes down to is building tools that you can use to embed two-dimensional diversity into your organization. And here's how you do so. Organizations should train differently. They should hire differently. They should manage differently, promote differently, and even enable alternatives of less popular positions using red teams. We're going to tackle each one by one here and talk about how these tools can deliver you to this place of creative innovation that moves your business forward and, most importantly, serves your customers even better. So let's talk about training first. When you are hosting a training or even team meetings, the first thing you need to do is to openly encourage dialogue and discussions that respectfully challenge or even question ideas so that people around you know that they can also do the same, and that all in the direction and with the intention of moving the business forward. So promote that environment where different perspectives are valued and they're embraced. Consider training other people on treating people how they would want to be treated themselves. And throughout the organization, even understanding the diverse traditions, celebrations, and holidays from other cultures, having that understanding and almost immersing yourself in those will help you to become more familiar with that which is unfamiliar and consider those unique and diverse perspectives. Be purposeful in about gathering others and finding their judgments and biases within the organization as a whole. Even create a session around within training about how our unconscious biases could be hindering opportunities throughout the organization. Try to find them and then demystify them and make sure that they move forward accordingly. If you need help with these discussions, a big suggestion I would give to you is to create that common language that other people can organize around in order to consider those diverse perspectives. Even a tool or a construct like DISC or motivation, 12 driving forces, which are all available through TTI, can create a way to approach this as a whole. And these tools are available through us and through our providers as well. I do have a question coming in that I just want to take a second to answer, and this is from Pat. And the question is, I've called this intentional diversity. Is this the correct term to use? Absolutely. I think intentional diversity is a great way to express and to verbalize the intent that or the direction that you're trying to move in. The most important thing is being able to use that language, as we discussed here with training, and create that common lingo that people can get organized around and that they can rally around in order to achieve those business goals. So something like intentional diversity, two-dimensional diversity, ethnographic diversity, there are a lot of different ways that you can define that, but the most important thing is that the way that you define diversity and the language that you use resonates with the people that you're delivering it to. So great input there, Pat. Another thing that we want to consider in terms of the tools that are in your toolkit is to look at the way that you would hire differently. And the idea here is to step back and assess where individuals in your organization are similar and where you are different in not only your thought process, but also your background. And then be able to say where your gaps are, identify them. And then write those job descriptions that attract individuals with diverse thoughts, diverse backgrounds, diverse mindsets. So there are resources and tools that are out there that can help you with this as well. And the idea is to create almost like a job benchmark, or identify a process by which you can build the job description to attract the people that you are looking for to fill those gaps in your organization. We do have a patented job benchmarking process that can help to diverse the talent pool as a whole and bring the right people to the table so that you can tackle problems in a really compelling way, especially as it relates to things like behaviors, motivations, skills, emotional intelligence, and even those perspectives. So again, it's a tool that we provide and help our clients and the clients of our providers to be able to move forward with, but it's just important to go through the action itself. Keep in mind, you may actually want to look for opinionated candidates and interview with diversity in mind. Let me be clear about this. Opinionated does not mean rude. Opinionated means that somebody has a unique perspective that can come to the table and they are willing to offer that up with the intent of moving the business forward. So coming up with a host of sample questions to assess if someone would be willing to voice their opinion would be really helpful in your interview process. And really think about screening for those free thinkers that do not blindly conform. So an unconventional question could be, how would you assimilate into our culture and at the same time not blindly conform to what we have going on? To get a good sense as to how the people you're interviewing will bring their unique perspectives and help your business to tackle challenges in new and compelling ways. If you need help with that, just ask us. We've got thousands of providers all around the world and experts that can help to staff and screen. There are an abundance of them out there. So make sure that when you're hiring, you're considering diversity, not only in the interview process, but also in your job description as a whole. Let's talk about how you manage differently. And consider the way that you would encourage the task-focused conflict, which is something that Jeff Bezos and Alfred Sloan were espousing in the quotes I read you earlier. They want to hear opposing viewpoints and how those opposing viewpoints can apply to the task at hand. From management and around creativity, push the teams to move to new heights of creativity. Collaborate and brainstorm ways that you could improve and move those points of creativity to the next level. It's also important for managers in your organization to create the psychological safety that fosters an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing their viewpoints and bringing their authentic selves to the workplace. And again, a big aspect of this comes down to that communication and making sure that you're creating that common language and that you're training individuals in your business to communicate effectively in a way that makes others feel comfortable bringing their viewpoints forward, but also for the individuals that are bringing the viewpoint forward to serve it up in a way that others in the organization will be receptive to that. Assessments, trainings, and tools are in the marketplace that can help to grease those skids to make sure that there are the common language and to make sure that individuals know how to manage differently and do so in a really respectful way. So again, you want to make sure that you can unlock those productive conversations to enable creativity within your organization by managing for diverse viewpoints, for diverse backgrounds, and looking at two-dimensional diversity as a whole. And another factor here is to promote differently. So what we found, we actually conducted a research study with HR.com that discussed the importance of team evaluations. And when you're promoting individuals from within your group or even hiring people from the outside, you want to have a component of team-based performance evaluation. Because what this will do is foster a culture of inclusion. It'll empower employees to work well together, to listen to one another, and it'll really inspire collaboration and innovation as a whole. We will send this study as part of a follow-up to our session today so that you can actually examine that And C, when you're promoting the individuals, how you can build a component of team-based performance evaluation. Going back to what we said in a few webinars a few months ago around this concept of team-based performance evaluation, that can be based on customer satisfaction metrics. It could be based on customer success metrics. And it could even be based on something that looks a little bit more customized to the organization, like engagement, and how the individuals and the teams are engaging overall with one another in order to move forward. So when you are promoting, think about how you can promote differently that encourages that diversity, both of thought and of protected class, to get to performance evaluations based on those. And lastly, but certainly not least, is a really fun concept, and that is creating red teams. This is often known as devil's advocate or the 10th man, and it comes from a structure we found in the Stages of Growth model brought to us by James Fisher. And the idea here is to task the team to challenge the strategy, the products and the services, or preconceived notions within your business. The members of this red team, so to say, should be from diverse backgrounds, different departments, different specializations. The most important component is that they have creativity, they trust one another, and they have superb communication skills. But the purpose here is to disagree with the way that it currently is. They need to have a lot of communication and training for those members of that red team to really be productive and help the business to move forward. But it really helps to check assumptions, and it helps to overcome groupthink, conformity, or even, as someone phrased it to me recently on LinkedIn, wrongthink, to discover those unconscious mindsets in the organization or other things that individuals might be feeling that would prevent the team from effectively moving forward. So here's the punchline. Diversity can be painful, but so is exercise. Exercise can be painful at times, but you know what? You feel better, you look better, and your health overall will be better. Same thing for diversity. You have to push yourself to grow these muscles because we need diversity in teams and organizations and society to change, grow, and innovate. I recently came upon a phrase called diversity fatigue, and it was actually an article that got published by the New Yorker last December that crystallized the concept for me, where so much effort had been put into the initiatives to support diversity that executives almost become tired of the phrase, which is problematic. When we think about the way that organizations do need to diversify and do need to innovate, diversity fatigue simply cannot be a factor. We need to kind of step out of the traditional methods that we've had for diversity as a whole, which is of protected class, to dimensionalize and to build additional ideas around how can we further understand diversity and bring not only cultural backgrounds and different ethnicities to the table, but also to bring different thoughts, different processes, different cultural experiences to help our business move forward. We have to fight against diversity fatigue, and we have to find the antidote for it in order for businesses to move forward. Because with the right intention and the right tools, along with the right mindset, you can grow the muscles. We actually have a quote here from Employee and Family Resources, Inc., that discusses how you can reinforce an inclusive culture by integrating both demographic diversity and diversity of thought. You cannot swap one out for the other. They have to be built in together. And by integrating both, your organization will form a mosaic of differences that is able to fuel ideas and new strategies for growth and innovation. Ultimately, it's about belonging, it's about inclusion, and it's about the organization's ability to innovate, because organizations that have diverse outperform those who do not. And we saw that in some of those metrics that I served up earlier. It goes right to the bottom line. And if this content appealed to you overall, you may want to hear even more. You may want to learn more about this. And I do want to serve up just in another place where you can continue to learn about this concept of innovation at the intersections and bringing together unique and diverse people so that you can continue to move forward in your business. We do have an international conference coming up where we will be discussing this and more, and that's on January 11th. That's a Friday here in Phoenix, Arizona. And we're going to take a deeper look at this event about people issues, diversity, and organizations as a whole, and how they can prepare for the future. One of the things that makes this such a compelling event for us overall is the speaker lineup. We are actually bringing Franz Johansson, as I mentioned before. He is an innovator in the space, definitely a thought leader with the Medici Group and the Medici Effect. He'll be a speaker at our event this year. We're also bringing Molly Fletcher, who's a CEO and author, to discuss how you can create urgency in an absence of crisis. And then also Ron Price, who's the author of Creating Influence, and basically identifies the different ways that you can identify how you can create influence in the organization, but specifically around changing our mindset about our people. These three, plus there are 6 other main stage speakers that we're really excited to bring to the table. Key takeaways that you would get from this event: in addition to innovating through unique and diverse ideas, you'll figure out how to put the right people in the right positions. You'll be able to build and preserve a transparent company culture. You'll be able to align employees with their strategic goals or your business's strategic goals. You'll be able to uncover ways to enable significant positive change when you don't even have a crisis, because right now, economic times are pretty good. As I mentioned, the innovation through unique and diverse ideas, and also creating a sense of urgency with your employees without creating chaos for them. You can learn more about this and so much more at TTISICon if this may be an interesting event for you. So again, thank you. I appreciate your time here today. I can take a few questions. I do see one more in queue here that I will be happy to tackle. This also comes in from Pat, I believe same person. I find employers like when I use the phrase diversity, inclusion, and equity. This helps them to see it through a new lens. Completely agree with that. Pat, that's a great tip for everyone that's on our call today to almost dimensionalize what diversity means. So diversity, inclusion, and equity. Another phrase that I've heard quite a bit and seen in the marketplace is belonging, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a group of people that have a really fantastic employee experience, that are engaged with our culture. So Pat, thank you for that comment. Definitely something to bring up as well. And use the phrases that resonate with the people that you're working with or the clients that you're working with in whatever dimensions. If there are any questions at this time, please feel free to enter them into the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel. I will give us all a minute or two to submit those, but in the meantime, I also want to restate the most critical aspect for your business or the businesses that you work with, the golden arrow in your quiver, so to say, of building a diverse company of diverse mindsets, of diverse individuals, is having that growth mindset. If you have individuals who are diverse with a fixed mindset, it will go nowhere. You need to have that growth mindset, the willingness and the openness to be able to flex those muscles and grow over time and learn new things. So I don't see any questions coming through at this time. I hope I did answer all of your questions. Again, I would love for all of you to view our conference website where we will be discussing this at greater length, and I would like to invite you all to join us there. If you have any questions about what was discussed here, please feel free to contact me directly. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. You can call the offices here at TTI Success Insights. Again, we do have the tools and the capabilities to help you with your diverse or your efforts to create a more diverse team and to innovate within your organizations, and have a network of associates, a network of providers all across the globe that are experts in their field and can highly customize any of the tools and resources that we can provide for your business as well. So thank you all for joining me today. Thank you everyone for spending your time with me. And a special thank you to our value-added associates who are feet on the street every day working with those clients to make sure that innovation and creativity is enabled in the organizations. We simply could not do it without them and are so grateful to them. Thank you all, and I hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.